In early 2024, inside a forgotten drawer in Essex, a discovery stunned the world. A sealed letter written by Princess Diana, marked with her rare red wax seal. For 26 years, it had passed silently between private hands, unopened, untouched, almost as if time itself was guarding its secrets. But when the envelope was finally authenticated, the shock wasn't just what Diana wrote, it was who she wrote it to. Not a confidant, not a friend. It was addressed to Princess Anne, the royal least close to her. Why Anne? And what truth was Diana leaving behind her? The letter that time tried to bury. In January 2024, a quiet home in Essex became the center of royal history. While sorting through a collection of old estate papers, a researcher opened a dusty drawer and found a sealed envelope marked with Diana's distinctive red wax seal. That seal had been used only a handful of times in her life, reserved for deeply personal messages. For 26 years, this letter had passed quietly through private hands, unseen and unopened, like a voice waiting to speak across decades. The envelope bore Diana's familiar stationery, embossed with her crest. Handwriting experts compared the slanted script, the ink, and the curves of her signature with letters she wrote in July 1997. The conclusion was unanimous. It was authentic. What startled historians most was not its survival, but its addressee. It was written not to William, not to Harry, not even to Charles. It was addressed to Princess Anne, the royal who had been seen as cold and distant toward Diana. For those who followed the royals in the 1980s and 1990s, the relationship between Diana and Anne was famously strained. They were opposite in every way. Diana, emotional and adored by crowds. Anne, private, practical, and bound to duty. Their distance was often visible at public events. So why would Diana, just weeks before her tragic August 1997 death, take the time to write something so personal to her? The discovery shocked royal experts and the public alike. To many, it felt like Diana had reached from the past to reveal a hidden chapter. The mystery wasn't only what the letter contained, but why Anne, and only Anne, had been chosen. The answer would rewrite everything we thought we knew about Diana's final months. The authenticity was beyond question. The red wax seal, the 1997 paper stock, and the unmistakable script. But what puzzled experts was the relationship itself. To understand why Diana chose Anne, we need to revisit the distance that defined their bond. Diana and Anne. From the moment Diana entered the family in 1981, the contrast between her and Princess Anne was striking. Diana was 20 years old, emotional, and quickly embraced as the people's princess. Anne was already a seasoned royal, hardened by years of protocol. Where Diana saw the crowds as her sanctuary, Anne viewed them as duty. The result was a natural clash. Two women bound by the crown, but divided by style, temperament, and era. By 1984, when Prince Harry was christened, tensions were already visible. Reports surfaced that Diana was hurt. Anne did not play a more active role in family life. At formal dinners, their exchanges were polite but cold. Body language experts noted how Anne rarely engaged with Diana in public, choosing instead to focus on official tasks. The differences weren't just personal. They were symbolic of two competing versions of royalty. One emotional, one stoic. The silence between them became a story of its own. In the 1990s, Diana confided to close friends that she felt isolated in the palace. She trusted very few people, and Anne was not one of them. Anne, for her part, reportedly dismissed Diana as too soft and too dramatic. Their lack of closeness wasn't hidden. It was whispered about at christenings, weddings, and trooping the color events, moments where warmth should have shone, but didn't. Yet, in 2024, the letter proved something extraordinary. Despite years of distance, Diana had chosen Anne as her confidant for her most private thoughts. The woman who seemed least sympathetic to her became the one she trusted most with her final words. It raised one haunting question. What had Diana seen in Anne that the world had overlooked? If Anne and Diana weren't close, then why the letter? The answer lay in the days before Paris, when Diana entrusted a sealed message to a staff member. Its journey across 26 years was almost as fascinating as its contents. The hidden journey of the lost letter. The story began in the final week of August 1997. Days before leaving for her fateful trip to Paris, Diana gave a sealed envelope to a senior palace staffer, instructing it be kept safe. After her death on August 31st, 1997, the staffer, overwhelmed by grief and palace politics, passed the envelope into private hands. It quietly slipped away from the official archive. Over the next 2 decades, the letter traveled a hidden path. By 2002, it was in the possession of a private collector who refused to open it, claiming to respect Diana's memory. In 2011, it surfaced again, sold discreetly to a reclusive historian known for safeguarding royal documents. For more than 13 years, it sat in a wooden drawer, untouched, collecting dust but holding a secret that could have changed history. In 2024, when the historian's estate was finally catalogued, archivists uncovered the envelope. Its seal was intact. Its paper bore the faint scent of Diana's favored stationery. Royal experts authenticated it within 48 hours, confirming beyond doubt that it was real. The world's attention shifted immediately. What could Diana have possibly written to Anne, the sister-in-law who had always seemed indifferent to her? It wasn't just about curiosity. The public wanted more than words. They wanted context. Why had this letter remained hidden for 26 years? And why did Diana, who had friends and allies around her, bypass them to place her final trust in Anne? The mystery was only deepening. The authenticity and journey of the letter were shocking enough. But when its contents were finally revealed, the world heard Diana's voice once more, clear, maternal, and hauntingly prescient. And what she asked of Anne would bring even the stoic Princess Royal to tears. The shocking contents. When the letter was finally opened in February 2024, historians described the moment as hearing Diana's voice again after 27 years. The first surprise was the tone. It wasn't bitter or frightened. It was calm, maternal, and heartbreakingly clear. Written on cream stationery dated August 27, 1997, just 4 days before her death, the words seemed almost prophetic. Diana began not with politics or scandal, but with William and Harry. She spoke of their laughter, their fears, and her greatest worry, that the crown might fail them emotionally. She wrote that she feared her sons would be raised in a world of duty without expression. She predicted that Prince William, though destined to be king, might struggle with suppressing emotion for the sake of protocol. She worried that Prince Harry, more sensitive by nature, might feel suffocated by rules he did not believe in. In haunting clarity, she noted that media intrusion would grow worse, not better, in the years ahead. The letter read less like prophecy and more like foresight from someone who knew exactly how the monarchy worked. Diana never accused or named enemies directly. She did not mention Charles, Camilla, or even the press. Instead, she asked Anne for one very specific role: to be present in the background. "You may never show affection openly," she wrote, "but I know you understand what it is to endure." She pleaded that if she were gone, Anne should be a steady hand for William and Harry, not in the spotlight, but behind the scenes, making sure they do not lose themselves. Those last lines struck readers like a hammer. If I'm gone, make sure they don't lose themselves. They were neither melodramatic nor cryptic. They were the words of a mother, days before her death, asking the one royal she thought could weather storms to protect her sons. The world was stunned. Anne herself, known for her composure, was reportedly shaken to tears. For decades, she had been painted as indifferent to Diana. But Diana had seen through the coldness and entrusted her with the most sacred duty a mother could give. The world now knew what Diana had asked of Anne, but the question lingered. Why Anne? Why would Diana, who rarely connected with her sister-in-law, choose her as guardian of her children's emotional survival? To answer that, one must look at what Diana admired most in Anne: her relentless stability. Why Anne? The unexpected trust. To understand Diana's choice, it is crucial to examine Princess Anne's life within the monarchy. By 1997, Anne had endured decades of public duty, often completing 400-plus engagements a year. She had survived a failed marriage, press criticism, and even a terrifying 1974 kidnapping attempt, all without scandal or collapse. Where other royals wavered, Anne remained steady. That was what Diana saw. She didn't need affection. She needed strength, and Anne embodied it. Unlike Charles, who was often portrayed as indecisive, or Camilla, who was viewed with suspicion, Anne was consistent. Diana knew she might not receive warmth from Anne, but she could rely on her integrity. In the letter, she acknowledged this indirectly, writing that her request was not for love, but for stability. She respected that Anne had endured the same crown that threatened to swallow Diana whole, and survived. Royal biographers later argued that Diana's choice of Anne was strategic. She had allies like Sarah Ferguson, friends outside the palace, and trusted confidants. But none of them carried the weight of royal duty the way Anne did. By entrusting Anne, Diana ensured her sons would have a protector rooted inside the institution itself. It wasn't about closeness. It was about survival within the monarchy. The decision was Diana's final act of maternal foresight. She may not have been able to change the system in her lifetime, but she could place her sons under the quiet watch of someone who knew how to endure it. In that choice, she revealed her respect for Anne, not born of affection, but of necessity. And in doing so, she reshaped Anne's place in royal history forever. The letter revealed Diana's trust in Anne, but it also reflected the urgency of Diana's final months. She was writing constantly in 1997, as if racing against time, leaving behind a trail of thoughts and warnings. This letter to Anne was part of that rush, a final attempt to prepare for what she feared most. Diana's final months. The year 1997 was transformative for Diana. No longer bound by her marriage, she had emerged as a global humanitarian force. In January, she visited Angola to campaign against landmines, producing images that moved the world. By June, she was meeting with international leaders and pushing her causes independently of the palace. But privately, staff recalled, she wrote more than ever: notes, journals, and sealed letters. Her handwriting, usually neat, became faster, sharper, as though she was racing an invisible clock. Friends later testified that Diana seemed both liberated and uneasy. She confided fears of constant surveillance, of phones being tapped, of paparazzi intrusions growing more dangerous. She also worried about her security arrangements, mentioning it days before her final trip. The letter to Anne reflected this dual state, calm in tone, but urgent in timing. Written on August 27, 1997, it carried the weight of a woman who sensed she might not have much time left. Among all her writings, the Anne letter stood out. Unlike other notes filled with emotion or self-reflection, this one was strategic. It wasn't about Diana's own struggles. It was about the future of her sons. She didn't ask for sympathy, she asked for action. It was a maternal will, disguised as a simple letter, meant to outlive her if she didn't return from Paris. When viewed in the context of Diana's final days, her trip to Paris on August 30th, her death at 12:23 a.m. on August 30th, the letter feels like part of a larger pattern. She was preparing, consciously or unconsciously, for the possibility she would not survive. And in doing so, she left behind not just memories, but instructions. The Anne letter was one of those instructions, and its urgency still chills those who read it today. By now, the letter had transformed Anne's role. She was no longer just the stoic Princess Royal. She was Diana's chosen anchor. And when historians analyzed the lines closely, they realized the message wasn't just about William and Harry. It was about rewriting a fractured relationship that had been misunderstood for decades. A rift rewritten. For decades, the story of Diana and Anne was one of distance. In the 1980s, royal watchers noticed the coldness. Diana did not choose Anne as godmother to either William or Harry, a decision that quietly offended the Princess Royal. Anne, in turn, skipped key family events like Prince Harry's christening in December 1984. Their body language at gatherings in the 1990s showed little warmth. To outsiders, they were rivals in silence, divided not by scandal but by style. Yet Diana's letter, written on August 27, 1997, shifted the narrative entirely. Between its lines was something more powerful than apology: respect. Diana acknowledged Anne's endurance and even admired her ability to survive royal duty without collapse. She didn't mention old rifts or tensions. She didn't apologize for past slights. Instead, she bypassed all of it, entrusting Anne with her most sacred request: to watch over William and Harry if she were gone. That choice said more than words ever could. For Anne, reading those lines in 2024 must have been disarming. She had believed Diana saw her as cold, perhaps even disapproving. But now, through ink frozen in time, she discovered Diana had recognized her strength. That realization struck Anne harder than any headline. It wasn't affection that united them, but mutual recognition of duty. Diana, so different in personality, had still chosen Anne as her son's unseen protector. The rift, long painted as permanent, was rewritten in those pages. What looked like silence was actually preparation. What looked like distance was actually strategy. Through her letter, Diana gave Anne not friendship, but validation. And for Anne, who spent her life dismissed as duty-bound and emotionless, that respect carried weight. It was the bridge no one expected, built not in life, but in legacy. The letter reframed a rivalry into recognition, but its truest weight was not in healing the past. It was in predicting the future. And when historians looked at William and Harry today, they realized Diana's words in 1997 had been nothing short of prophecy. the prophecy comes true. When Diana wrote about her sons, her fears were hauntingly clear. She worried William would become trapped in duty and Harry crushed by expectation. Looking at their lives in 2024, her words feel almost supernatural. William, now 42 years old, balances royal tradition with compassion. His initiatives on mental health in 2017, homelessness in 2020, and climate change in 2021 reflect Diana's humanitarian spirit. In many ways, he is the king she imagined, regal yet human. Harry, by contrast, chose a different path. In 2020, he and Meghan stepped back from senior royal duties. Their move to California, the interviews, the memoir Spare, released in January 2023, all showed a man unwilling to be silenced by protocol. Critics called it betrayal, but Diana would have understood. Her letter made clear she wanted her sons to be themselves, not simply heirs to the throne. Harry's rebellion was exactly the kind of emotional survival she had begged for. Diana's prediction about media intrusion also proved true. William and Catherine fight relentless press attention, with their children George, Charlotte, and Louis already under scrutiny at ages 11, 9, and 6. Harry and Meghan have faced tabloids, lawsuits, and paparazzi pressure. The battle Diana described in 1997 continues, almost word for word. Her letter wasn't just a warning. It was a map of what unfolded in the decades that followed. The most powerful part of Diana's prophecy is its fulfillment through both sons in different ways. William honors tradition by softening it with empathy. Harry honors individuality by refusing to be molded. Together, they embody the balance Diana wanted: freedom within or outside the crown. Her letter wasn't just insight. It was the script for the future, written by a mother who knew her sons better than anyone else. If Diana's prophecy lives on in her sons, then what of Anne? The letter asked her to be a silent guardian, and while Anne never spoke publicly of it, her actions over the years tell a story of quiet fulfillment. Anne's silent response. Anne has never been one for public displays of sentiment. Since 1997, she has rarely spoken about Diana at all. Yet, palace insiders noticed a change after the letter surfaced in 2024. Though she never confirmed its contents, Anne's behavior began reflecting its instructions. She quietly supported William's efforts to modernize the monarchy. She defended his push for a slimmed-down royal family, a move first discussed in 2021 and now increasingly accepted by the public. She also made subtle but significant gestures. At events in 2025, Anne appeared more often beside William and Catherine, lending her presence as validation. In meetings with Commonwealth leaders, she championed the younger generation's voices, echoing Diana's plea for empathy over rigidity. Observers noted how often Anne deferred to William in public, a rare acknowledgement of succession beyond protocol. It was as though Diana's request was being honored without words. Royal aides called Anne the silent sentinel. She never spoke of the letter, never claimed a role, but she lived it. Her loyalty to William became visible not in speeches, but in alignment. While others in the family clashed or retreated, Camilla criticized, Harry distanced, Anne stood firm beside the next generation. That steadiness reflected exactly what Diana had hoped for. In the end, Anne may have honored Diana more than anyone else, not by showing affection, but by quietly doing what was asked. No headlines, no interviews, just quiet loyalty to her nephews, fulfilling the wish of a sister-in-law she had once misunderstood. The prophecy was not only fulfilled in William and Harry, it was protected by Anne's silence. The rediscovery of the letter has changed more than relationships. It has reframed royal history itself. Diana's private words are no longer whispers in sealed envelopes. They are part of the monarchy's story, shaping how the crown is seen in the 21st century. The letter that changed royal history. The letter now rests in the royal archives, sealed behind glass, but digitized for study. Visitors see not just an artifact, but an echo of Diana's voice. It reminds the world that the monarchy is not only about jewels and protocol, it is about people, pain, and purpose. Written in 1997, discovered in 2024, it bridges 27 years of silence. And in doing so, it has become one of the most important royal documents of the modern age. Historians argue that Diana's choice of Anne redefined her legacy. She trusted not the closest ally, but the strongest survivor. That decision challenged the world's assumptions about her relationships. It showed she valued stability as much as emotion. And it elevated Anne, long overshadowed by other royals, into the role of Diana's silent partner in safeguarding the future. More importantly, the letter has become a compass for the monarchy itself. As William steps forward, Harry charts his independent path, and Catherine embodies empathy. The crown evolves in Diana's image. Anne's presence ensures that evolution is rooted in both strength and memory. The institution Diana once feared might crumble now leans on the very values she wrote about in secret. In the end, the letter did not just survive 26 years in a drawer. It changed the way history remembers Diana and Anne. It turned rivalry into respect, foresight into prophecy, and silence into legacy. And through it, Diana's voice, calm, maternal, prophetic, continues to shape the crown she once struggled to belong to. The revelation of Diana's lost letter has become one of the most extraordinary discoveries in royal history. Written on August 27, 1997, just 4 days before her tragic death in Paris, it carried the weight of a woman who knew time was running short. Diana didn't write in anger. She didn't lash out at the monarchy or point fingers. Instead, she spoke with maternal clarity, entrusting her greatest fears and hopes to the one royal she believed could withstand the storm, Princess Anne. The irony is striking. For years, Diana and Anne were viewed as opposites, the emotional people's princess versus the stoic Princess Royal. They were rarely seen together, their differences magnified by royal watchers. Yet in her final moments of foresight, Diana bypassed closeness and chose resilience. She asked Anne to ensure William and Harry never lost themselves to the cold machinery of monarchy. It was not affection that inspired this choice, but trust in Anne's unwavering steadiness. In hindsight, Diana's words feel prophetic. Prince William, now carrying the crown's future, balances tradition with compassion, the very blend Diana envisioned. Prince Harry, though divisive, carved his own path of independence, reflecting his mother's plea for authenticity. And in the background, Anne has quietly fulfilled her role. Without speeches or declarations, she has stood firm beside the younger generation, lending her strength exactly as Diana asked. The letter now rests in the royal archives, but its voice continues to echo. It reminds the world that legacy is not built only on titles or crowns, but on foresight and love. Diana's choice of Anne reshaped royal history, transforming a cold rift into a bridge of respect. 26 years after her death, Diana still shapes the monarchy's future. And thanks to Princess Anne, her voice, steady, maternal, and hauntingly accurate, has finally been heard.